Oh, hello. I'm funny. My name's Morgan, and I'm a really awkward person, but I do love to read, and I really want to start a booktube channel. So this is what I'm doing right now, and I have no idea how to talk to my phone, but I'm gonna push through it. Basically, the purpose of this video is I wanted to talk about all the books I've read so far in 2025 and what books I plan to read in March. My goal last year was 20 books and I managed to read double. I read 40. So this year I thought let's spice it up a little bit. Let's do 50, halfway to 100. Do I ever think I will ever get to the point where I read 100 books in 1 year? No. But I think I could do 50. We're a week into March. I've read 5 books this year. Yeah, I know. It's not sounding like I'm going to get to 50, but trust me, I do this all the time. I'll go months without reading and then I'll read like 10 books in 1 month. Book number 1, I started it in 2024, but I finished it on January 1st. It's Call Me By Your Name by Andre Ackerman. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I'm probably not. Over spring break, over Christmas break, I was obsessing over Timothy Chalamet, as one does, because, I mean, look at him. He's amazing. So I was like, okay, I've seen this book. Actually, at some point in middle school, I wanted to read this, and I'll tell you, thank God, no 12-year-old should be touching this. No 16-year-old should be touching this. But you know what? I touched it anyways, and I'm a little traumatized. It was a little weird. I cannot for the life of me remember Timothy Chalamet's name because it's not even on the description on the back. Come on. Oh, Elio. How could I forget that? Basically, what this book is about is Elio. He lives in Italy. Every year over the summer, I'm pretty sure his parents have one guest in their home, usually someone from like America, to come live with them for the summer as they do their business in Italy. But this summer, it's Oliver, and he's like 7 years older than Elio, which wouldn't be that big of a deal if Elio wasn't 17. But let's face it, I feel like Elio is more of a creep than Oliver, so whatever, I guess, whatever. Elio starts obsessing over Oliver. He has like big teenage boy crush on this man, and the man, he's kind of, I don't know, there. He spends a lot of the book being like, this guy's hot, but he says it in such a poetic way. It's honestly a really beautiful story. It's written very beautifully. I actually annotated it. Let's see if I can find some quotes that stand out to me. Here's an example. I had seen my pouting apathy change into I'll play anything for you till you ask me to stop, till it's time for lunch, till the skin on my fingers wears off layer after layer, because I like doing things for you. We'll do anything for you, just say the word. That's how into Oliver Elio is. Tell me I've imagined all of this, because it can't possibly be true for you as well. And if it is true for you too, then you're the cruelest man alive. God. Because I didn't know how to speak in code. I didn't know how to speak at all. That quote always reminds me of something. Oh, I Love You, I'm Sorry by Gracie Abrams, yes. Please don't hurt me, which meant hurt me all you want. Wanting to test desire is nothing more than a ruse to get what we want without admitting we want it. And I think the most known from this book, and if you've heard of this book or the movie, you've probably heard this quote, is it better to speak or to die? Ugh. And mind you, that's all within the first like 60 pages of the book, and there are so many more things that I've highlighted. The writing is beautiful, and is the story a little odd at sometimes, a little gross? Yes, but I still think it's worth reading, and I do think the movie captured that so well. The way Timothée Chalamet acted in it. I love him. I love you, Timothy. After reading that book is when I got into the reading slump. I was reading Little Woman, but I've been slowly getting through that now. I read like the first half really quickly and I haven't really touched it in a while, but I realized I was getting in a reading slump, so I went out, I got a book that I knew I could read in that moment, and it still took me a while to read. I didn't finish it until February 4th, which is like a little bit over a month after I finished this book. But it is Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. Again, I don't know if I'm saying that right. I'm pretty sure I'm saying that one right. It's like an enemies to lovers book in a way that a realistic fiction romance, whatever, actually can be enemies to lovers, because, you know, it's not a fantasy world where they're like trying to kill each other, or like where the other, maybe his father sacrificed her little sister or something. I don't know. Basically, it's in like a hospital setting. The main characters, they're both doctors. The female main character, she has a brother who is sick and he needs a kidney transplant. She also has the chance to get a promotion because the guy in that, I don't remember what position it is. Kind of like, I think, what Dr. Weber is in Grey's Anatomy. But then this guy, he moves there, and she hates him because he kind of gets in the way. Like, all of a sudden, he's her contestant because, like, the guy's like, okay, you need competition. We're not just going to hand you this position. Like, we already know you're probably going to get it, but we need it to, like, not look like we're just handing it to you because it's you. But then the guy, who actually, he's a really good representation of anxiety. I don't feel like I see a lot of representations for anxiety, especially in guys, like, pretty rare, so I think it was really well done in this. He feels really bad because, like, all the reasons that she hates him, it's like just miscommunication. Again, this is not really enemies to lovers because he never really dislikes her, it's just her disliking him. You know what I mean? But he sends her an apology letter. He like writes it out because that's something he does. Like, he writes in a journal, so he decides to write her out an apology note. And then after that, it just like, they keep going back and forth, and soon they fall in love. And it's actually really cute. Is it my favorite romance book ever? No. But I still think it was cute. It does have a trope at the end that a lot of people don't really like. And I know that kind of probably gives away what the trope is, because I've heard other people say that about this book, and I already knew what it was going to be. I don't hate that trope as much as other people do, but I do feel like this book might have been better off without it. I ended up giving it a 3 stars, just like the last one, because it was entertaining, but it wasn't anything special. The next book I have is Anna and the French Kiss. I actually originally read this in 8th grade, but I decided to pick it back up again because it's been 4 years. This is the book that got me out of my reading slump. I tend to reread books when I realize, hey, I'm in a reading slump and I'm not getting out of this anytime soon. It's either a reread of a book, or I happen to pick up a book that becomes a 6-star read. Like, those are usually the only ways I can get out of a reading slump, but it did the job. This book is about a girl. She's a senior in high school, and her father decides to send her to a boarding school in Paris, giving her basically no choice. He's like, you gotta go, no arguing, you're going. And she ends up making friends with a few girls, and then she also meets the male love interest. His name is like St. James. I don't know how his first name is like British. No, it's French. Anna and the French Kiss, not the British Kiss. But he has a girlfriend, and she kind of has like a situationship back at home, so it's kind of complicated. There is cheating in this. I feel like that's just something like should be a warning. I don't really see why that had to happen like that. I really wish there was no cheating. There was no need for there to be cheating in there. Like, whatever, he had a girlfriend, but he could have broken up with her. It's like emotional cheating the whole book, and then they kiss. And it's horrible. If you just ignore that, it is so cute. It is such an easy read. Like, if you just want something that you can zip past, like, it's not badly written, but it's like in such a simple way that it's just like, it's like kind of pretty. There's beautiful writing. This is pretty writing. It's cute. And the vibes of the book is exactly what the cover is giving. The 4th book on this list I don't have with me because I actually read it for school. It's A Raisin in the Sun. I mean, I read it, so I'm still counting it as one of my 5 books. I'm still counting it towards my 50 books of the year. Anyways, the book, I finished this yesterday. It is The Unmaking of June Farrow by Adrienne Young. This book, it's not what I expected it to be. I heard the plot, like, okay, basically it's about this, like, it's a family of women, like a line, like the mom's, whatever, you know what I mean? Each of them are cursed, and now June Farrow, she's the only Farrow woman alive after her grandmother recently passed away from this curse. And she has to figure out a way to unbreak it. But it's not just any curse. It's not just, oh, these women go mad, because that's just what it is. They went mad, they kept seeing things. They think it's like a mental thing, but it's actually magic. It just, again, it didn't happen the way I thought it would. And I think I made up my own story in my head, because I didn't actually buy this book until months after hearing about it. And I feel like in that time, and every time I saw that book in the bookstore, I would pass it and be like, I feel like in my heart, I already knew what the story was, but it just wasn't that. Like, I made up my own thing, and it wasn't that. It was still beautiful, though. Like, this book, the vibes of this book, the characters, just everything in it. There's like a few plot twists in here. It's beautiful. It's worth 5 stars, but I gave it 4 stars because there was just parts of it that kind of pissed me off a little bit. Partly one, because again, that's my own fault. I made up my own exceptions. I had this whole idea in my head and it wasn't that. But also, like, even if I didn't have those expectations, there's just certain things about it that I'm like, I feel like could have been done better, or like certain things that weren't, like, they didn't feel complete to me. And I would say what they were, but it would 100% give away what exactly in this book. Like, this is something you need to go in as blind as possible. Like, read the blurb and then just read it. Don't go on TikTok. I don't know. Just go in blind. But trust me, this is worth the read. It's beautiful. I'm out of breath. Now, let's move on to the books that I want to read. Hopefully, most of them in the month of March. But, these are my next reads. Like, I'm not picking up any other book on my TBR. I'm going to read these 5 books. My current read is Me Before You. You might have heard of the movie, might have heard of the book. I think the movie, the male love interest, he's played by the same actor as Finnick in The Hunger Games, and then Billy, I think, in Daisy Jones and the Six. I am 50 pages into the book, and I started it today. Basically, it's about this girl. She worked at a cafe, but the cafe closes down, and now she has to find a new job because her family's struggling a little bit. And the only job she can seem to find and keep is becoming, is she considered a caregiver or like a helper? I don't know, but there's a guy, he recently, 2 years ago, I think at this point, the prologue is what happens to him, but then it's like 2 years later. He's a quadriplegic, which is like he's paralyzed, and she helps him, and he is not happy with his situation. He kind of like, he's mean to her in the beginning. She's kind of like a quirky girl, I don't know what other word to use for that. That's like a horrible description, but she's not what's considered the norm. Like, she loves to be outside the box, and he's like really reserved. Like, they're like complete opposites of each other, and it's basically a romance, one that I already know has a sad ending. I don't know if that's a spoiler. I feel like everyone knows that this has a sad ending. Me Before You brings to life 2 people who couldn't have less in common. A heartbreakingly romantic novel that asks, what do you do when making the person you love happy also means breaking your own heart? Yeah, that's... if you're reading this, you're asking for a sad ending. Okay, that's not a spoiler. It's literally written all over the back of the book. If you do want to pick up this book, okay, I don't think the author is ableist, but the characters in it, some of the characters kind of are. There's so many, I'm only 50 pages in, and there have been so many things said. And as someone, my father is quadriplegic. I don't think it's as severe as Will, he's the main character, who's paralyzed. My dad's isn't as bad as his. He can do more than Will can. But just hearing all the things they said and the mindset people have, like, at one point, let me see if I can find it. I'll read you this dialogue. I feel like the only non-ableist people in this book is obviously Will, the girl, and then Will's parents. Okay, for context, this is the girl's current boyfriend. He's kind of a douche. Okay, are you really telling me you'd stick around if I was paralyzed from the neck down? And the girl's like, of course I would. No, you wouldn't. And I would expect you to. Well, I would. But I wouldn't want you here. I wouldn't want someone to stay with me out of pity. As if being paralyzed magically makes you unlovable. And I know it's supposed to make me mad, but when I read that, I take a break. But I do like it so far. So, like, don't stop that. Unless it's really gonna trigger you, don't let that stop you. It's Heartless Hunter by Kristen Cicarelli. I know the second book is a duology. It's the Crimson Moth trilogy. I think the second book came out last month, and I did want to read it before the second book came out, and then I could, like, go get the second book if I really liked it. But again, I got in a reading slump, so that didn't happen. But it's basically about witches. I think witches are, like, being hunted, and it's an enemies to lovers, a true enemies to lovers, where the girl's a witch, and then this guy's hunting her. And I think she pretends to help him. I could be wrong. What even is the synopsis of this? Oh, he pretends to court her because he has suspicions of her helping other witches get out of danger, I guess. So he pretends to court her, and then he soon realizes that beneath her beauty and shallow facade is someone fiercely intelligent and tender who feels like his perfect match. Except what if she's the very villain he's been hunting? So he knows that she's a part of something, I think, but he doesn't know that she's a witch, and he's a witch hunter. I've heard really good things about it, and I'm actually really excited now that I'm reading the synopsis for the first time in a while, because I think I got this book in, like, October of last year, so it's been quite a while since I really thought about it. We have In Memoriam by Alice Wynne, which I can pronounce that. Yay! This one is set in 1914 during World War I. It's MLM. Let's be completely honest. I bought it. I mean, it does sound interesting, and I probably would have bought it either way, but what really pushed me to buy it was that the person who wrote this used to be a Dreary author. I don't think I would be the reader I am now if it wasn't for Dreary fanfiction. One of the guys enlists, so the other guy rushes to join him at the front, and the rest of their classmates soon follow. Now death surrounds them, often inches away, and no one knows who will be next. An epic tale of forbidden romance and devastating tragedy that managed also to be sparkling and full of life. I have high hopes, and I don't ever really want to set my hopes too high, because I feel like when I go in knowing that, okay, maybe this won't be for me, that's when I tend to enjoy stuff more. Can't help but feeling like I know in my heart this is gonna at least be a 4-star. And then we have Love Unwritten by Lauren Asher. This romance book, probably about 200 pages too long, maybe 300, maybe it could be half the length it is. But honestly, actually, never mind, the text is kind of small. I thought it was bigger text. The main character's kind of reminding me of Tony Stark. What can I say? Basically, I think the two love interests, they both knew each other in high school, but now they're adults. And the guy, he's a single dad, and he's, like, rich, and he's kind of grumpy, Tony Stark, and he needs a babysitter. So Ellie, she is a songwriter, and she's trying to make a living, so she starts being a nanny. Not a babysitter, a nanny. So she's around more, and I think the close proximity brings them together, and they fall in love. And I'm really questioning why it's so long, so it better be good. Then the book I most recently bought is Masters of Death by Olive Blake. This book, I think, follows a lot of characters, and there's, like, I think 3 different love stories within this book. Synopsis seems to mostly focus on Viola and Fox, which they might be a love interest, but they might not be. I don't really know who gets with who, but, you know, that's going to be the fun part of it, I guess. But basically, Viola, she is a struggling real estate agent and a vampire. Word vampire, and I am sold. I love vampires. If there's a vampire or a mermaid, sign me up. Sign me up. And anyway, she's a real estate agent, as I said, and she needs to sell this house, but it's haunted. And what do you do when a house is haunted? You call a medium. Except this medium, Fox, he's a fake. Guys, he's a fake. He's faking it. He technically can speak to death, but only through his godfather, which happens to be death. But for some reason, his godfather is gone. I don't know. He's gone. And I think there's like games in this, because it says there is a game that immortals play. There was only one rule: don't lose. And I don't really know what to expect from this book. I can already feel what vibes it has, and I kind of can get an idea of what it's gonna focus on. But plot-wise, I'm going in blind. But like, I feel like that's the best way to go into a book. So I'm like really excited for this. And lastly, I'm definitely not reading all of these in March. In fact, I really want to do a reading vlog with these books because it is a series. It is popular on TikTok. If you've ever glanced at Book Talk, I'm 90% sure that you have heard of these books. You've at least heard of this author. Look at her. Look at her. She's heavy. Oh my god. Now, I would have started reading this a lot sooner if it wasn't for for the third time in a row, for the millionth time in a row, I had a huge reading slump. So that didn't help. But also, there is so much debate on TikTok of whether or not you should read this book, Assassin's Blade, first or third. And everyone's telling me different things, and each way both seems wrong and right. I still haven't even really decided which way I'm going to read it. Again, I feel like I'm going in really blind, even though like this book has been like really popular for so many years, and I've heard so much, like I've come across it so many times. I don't really know what it's about, really. So it's gonna be one hell of a journey. That concludes all these. How many books? All 9 books I talked about. That concludes my first video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you're still here, maybe subscribe, because I have 0 subscribers right now. So like 1 subscriber would be like an accomplishment. Have a good day. Read. Stop looking at your phone. I know you're watching me right now. Yeah, I'm honored, but read.